Welcome back to our online lecture series in textile effluent treatments. So in the previous lecture video, we saw about secondary treatment method. Specifically, we saw about the activated sludge method of treating the wastewater. And in this video, we'll be seeing about aerated lagoons, secondary sedimentation process, and oxidation ponds in detail. So aerated lagoons are nothing but deep waste stabilization ponds which are artificially aerated through mechanical means, and because of this the organic matter gets stabilized. So it is an alternative than we are only relying on photosynthetic oxygen, because it is a slow process, but when we mechanically induce the oxygen there, it accelerates the process. So it represents a system of industrial wastewater treatment that is intermediate between oxidation ponds and activated sludge system. So these lagoons are deeper than the oxidation ponds, and because we artificially aerate them, so depth is not a matter. So these are deeper than the oxidation ponds, and here the detention time and area required are less. So depth of the basin varies from 2.4 to 3.6 meters, and the retention time varies from 4 to 10 hours. The efficiency is about 65 to 90%. So these aerated lagoons can be classified into two types. One is facultative aerated lagoon, and the other one is the aerobic aerated lagoons. So facultative aerated lagoons where there is both aerobic and anaerobic process takes place together in a single pond, while aerobic aerated pond is that only aerobic process takes place. So method of aerating the lagoons. So the mechanical methods of aeration are motor driven submerged or floating jet aerators, one method, and the other one is motor driven floating surface aerators, and the other one is motor driven fixed in place surface aerators. Fourth one is injection of compressed air through submerged diffusers. In the first three, there is a motor driven surface aerators, or there may be submerged, while in the last one there is only submerged aerators are there. So floating jet aerators. So the ponds or the basins using floating surface aerator, it achieves to about 80 to 90% of BOD removal, and it has a retention time of 1 to 10 days. The ponds the depth of the pond may vary from 1.5 to 5 meters. So in a surface aerated system, this floating jet aerators provide two functions. So if it is surface aerated, there are two functions. One is the transfer of air into the basin required by the biological oxidation reaction. So we transfer the air into the basin, which is required for biological oxidation process to undergo. Second one is they provide mixing required for dispersing air for contacting the reactants. So first one, it is that it provides the air into the system so that the biological oxidation reaction can undergo. And the second case, it acts as a stirrer, or it acts as a mixer, because it mixes the fluid, and it makes the components, that is the food material in it, to be in contact with the microbes. So that is that it mix well the oxygen, wastewater, and the microbes. So floating high-speed surface aerator delivers the oxygen at a rate of about 1 to 1.2 kilogram per kilowatt hour. Low-speed surface aerators are mostly used in sewage or industrial treatment, as it has high standard oxygen transfer efficiency, which is called SOT. The rate of biological reaction increases with temperature, while it is in the range between 0 to 40 degrees Celsius. So when it is about 40 degrees Celsius, there will be high rate of biological reactions. So this picture shows a typical aerated basin where we have surface aerators. Two surface aerators are there, which mixes the fluid well, and it also aerates the fluid. So it is an electric motor with propeller and slinger ring on the vertical motor shaft. So this oxidizes the liquid well. that pond is get aerated well by this mechanical aerators. Next one is submerged diffused aeration. So here the aerators are fixed inside the lagoon. So there are two types of submerged diffusion aeration system. One is floating lateral and one is submerged lateral. So both uses fine or medium bubble diffusers to provide the aeration and the mixing of the process water. So these diffusers can be suspended slightly above the lagoon floor or may rest at the bottom. So we can fix it at the bottom or it may suspend above the bottom of the pond. So flexible air line or weighted air hose supplies air to the diffuser unit from the air lateral. So there is an air lateral pipe which supplies the air into the diffuser. So it disperses the water into the stream either in slow floating or submerged condition. So next is secondary sedimentation. So secondary sedimentation is similar to the first primary sedimentation, but here it is done to remove the biomass from biological reactors so that we can get a clarified effluent and thickened sludge separately. So the sole purpose of the secondary sedimentation tank is to remove the biomass from the biological reactors. So it is used for process such as trickling filters and RBC, that is rotational biological contactors. And solids are typically settled and wasted similar to the primary sedimentation. For activated sludge, it is necessary to recycle part of the settled solids and return them to the biological reactor so as to maintain the desired mixed liquid suspended solids concentration. So in order to keep the thriving of the microbes, a part of them is recirculated in case of activated sludge systems. So the recycled steam is known as return activated sludge, as I mentioned earlier, while the fraction of sludge that is wasted and not recycled is referred to as waste activated sludge. So here you can see a simple conical type vertical flow type sedimentation tank, or it is also called as Dortmund tank. So here it's a secondary clarifier where wastewater is allowed to stagnant and the sludge is removed through motor system through a separate pipe from the bottom. So all settling regimes play a role in this settling of the mixed liquid suspended solids in the secondary clarifiers. So here there are in each layer there are different type of settling phenomena takes place. So the type 1 settling is predominant in the upper region of the settling zone since there are low solid concentration, and the type 2 settling occurs in the inlet area. So example in the flocculating feed well of the circular clarifier, and in the region below the uppermost region of the settling zone where concentration of solids is high enough for the flocculation to occur. So type 2 settling is where flocculation occurs. And further down below the type 2 region is the type 3 region. Here the solids are carried into the sludge blanket, and type 4 settling occurs in the sludge blanket, that is the lowest region of the tank. At the bottommost region, type 4 settling occurs. So design consideration for secondary and secondary sedimentation tank. So as similar to the primary sedimentation tank, the design consideration for secondary sedimentation tank can be divided into consideration based on influent loading and characteristics and those based on the clarifier geometry. So based on the influent loading and characteristics, the following design consideration are considered, that is surface overflow rate, the rate at which the effluent is treated, that is surface overflow rate, and next one is return activated sludge flow and the sludge blanket depth which is formed. The next one is the mixed liquid suspended solids or the food volume. And the fourth one is the sludge volume index. And the fifth one is the solids loading rate. Based on geometrical configurations, the common geometry configurations for the primary and secondary clarifiers, or we all know that it may be either circular or rectangular. So other configurations are there, such as square and octagonal clarifier, are also used, but they are less typical. The choice of clarifier configuration, it depends on the site where there are space constraints or operator familiarity. It depends on the site of uh, site where we are going to propose this treatment plant. And based on maintenance and personnel available, we chose the type of configuration. Next one is oxidation ponds. So oxidation ponds are also the waste stabilization ponds with open flow through earthen basins. So it is specifically designed and constructed to treat the sewage and biodegradable industrial wastewater. So they have a comparatively long detention period from few days to several days. It is different from aerated lagoons because in oxidation ponds there is no mechanical aeration, only natural process undergoes here. So it takes a large number of detention times there. And here the waste stabilized by natural forces alone. So this stabilization pond can be classified into three types: aerobic, facultative, and anaerobic. So here you can see the topmost there is aerobic process, while in the bottommost type there is anaerobic process. In the middle area there will be both aerobic and anaerobic process undergoes together. So this sectional area of a oxidation pond which is under construction. So aerobic pond. So the way stabilization of waste is brought by the aerobic bacteria which flourishes in the presence of oxygen. So the oxygen demand of this bacteria is met by the combined action of the algae and other microbes such as bacteria and protozoa. Hence it is called algal photosynthesis or algal symbiosis. So in symbiosis, the algae produces oxygen using its green chlorophyll by trapping the sun's energy, and it uses photosynthesis process. So this oxygen is utilized by the bacteria, and it derives energy from the oxygen, and it consumes the biodegradable waste matter. So the end product of this process are carbon dioxide, ammonia, and phosphates. So here the depth varies between below 0.5 meter and requires stirring to provide the aerobic condition. So aerobic pond is usually shallow, since in order to maintain the aerobic condition it is made shallow, and that is the depth is below 0.5 meters and it requires stirring to provide aerobic condition. So anaerobic ponds, and in these ponds the treatment is brought out by the anaerobic bacteria. So the process carried out in the absence of oxygen. So the end products are carbon dioxide, methane, and the other gaseous products. So here there's possibility of eruption of foul odors and pungent smells, since it is anaerobic process. So the depth of the pond is higher than that of that is aerobic ponds, and it ranges from 2.5 to 4 meters. So in facultative ponds, the waste is stabilized by both aerobic and anaerobic process. So the upper layer of pond work under aerobic condition, while the bottom layer works under anaerobic condition, as I said earlier. So the upper layer checks the evolution of the pungent gases from anaerobic process, because the bottom most anaerobic process produce pungent gas, while the topmost aerobic bacteria decompose those matter, and it minimizes the odor nuisance. So the depth of the pond varies from 1 to 1.5 meters here. The advantages of using oxidation ponds is that it is quite suitable in hot countries like India, and where there are about more than 200 days where it is more sunny, and the BOD removal is up to 90%, and coliform removal is up to 99%. This method is very cheap. The capital cost is also very low, which is about 10 to 30% of the conventional plant. Maintenance cost is also very low in case of oxidation ponds, and no skilled supervision is required. This method is also flexible, so it does not get upset due to the fluctuation in the organic loading. So disadvantage is that there is a nuisance due to mosquito and bad odors, and when pond gets overloaded, algae growth is also higher, right? So that is also a disadvantage here. And to avoid the odor problem, we may keep this pond far away from the residential areas, so that the communities won't get affected. So banks of this pond should be kept clear from the plant grasses and bushes to prevent mosquito breeding. So in order to prevent mosquito breeding, the nearby vegetation, plant grasses and bushes can be cleared off to reduce the breeding of mosquitoes. So far we saw about the secondary treatment process, of which we saw aerated lagoons first and its types, and then we saw about sedimentation, secondary sedimentation, and about its design consideration we saw, and next we saw about the oxidation pond and its types we saw one by one, and we also saw its advantages and disadvantages. So that's all in this video, and we will be seeing furthermore secondary treatment process in the next video. Thank you.